What he was asking you is, in your career, doing this kind of analysis, what particular mistakes that you made do you remember?
Well, every time I failed on those 3 scores, I made a mistake. Every time I didn't really get accurate information, I made a mistake. Complete information, I made a mistake. I thought I had an insight, it wasn't insight, I made a mistake. Every time I failed on 3 scores, I made a mistake. And there are plenty.
Specific examples of?
Well, on the big bet that I ever made, I don't recall we ever made a mistake, actually, on the big bet. Now, my biggest mistake, actually, is not making a couple bet. The biggest mistake I made is that during the course of my career, that, I had spectacular returns, but I couldn't raise any money. Because every time I go out to talk to people, people basically say, what the hell you're talking about? I want a monthly, I want a 2 weekly, I want a weekly returns. I want you to go up in a down market. I mean, that's what I wanted. I want you to be a bank, except yield better. Well, you're a hedge fund, aren't you? So anyway, but that's, I couldn't really, in the end, there was a couple years, not long. I said, okay, I'll do some of those conventional stuff. I'll move into Julian Robinson's. You learn from the best practice of other hedge fund managers, and somebody else kind of work on the shorting, all of that. Essentially sort of useless things. It turned out to be. And I sort of busy myself with all sorts of different trades. Because if you're in shorting, you just have to trade. There's no other choices. Because, your upside is 100%, your downside is unlimited. You have to trade. And so you really, and your mentality changes somewhat. You can't no longer really, you're basically kind of put yourself into what Charlie says about kind of if you're doing things like that, it's just as if you bound your hands behind you in an ass-kicking game or something like that. It's true. It really is true. And that was the period of time that I probably have the biggest opportunity of company that I have absolute insight, management that I know, that are trading below cash, and subsequently went up 50 to 100 times. And I missed it. I couldn't really bring myself into it. It doesn't really fit into this monthly, all this is shit. That was the biggest mistake I made. It's not how much money I lost, it was how much money I forgot. I lose money, of course I do. I do make mistakes from time to time. And usually you made a mistake when you haven't really quite finished all your work, but you like it, enough. So it's the Timberland, at 28 I'll bought some. But I haven't finished all the work, and I said, on itself, the probability is with me. But I added a lot more after I finished the whole process. Well, sometimes, as you're sort of finding more and more, you prove your thesis wrong, by then you lost 20, 30%. You sold it, okay, so you're wrong. Take the mistake, run, move on. But odds is with you. If you're buying stock at it with a sufficient margin of safety, the probability is with you. So if you do that long enough, and with a relatively smaller amount of bet, of course you haven't known everything, then you're okay. You're not likely to lose a lot of money. But if you cannot really bet on the things you know, and you have insight, no other people have it. And that's the biggest mistake. I cannot forgive myself for making that mistake.
You're going to tell them what that company is?
No. Because I still might have a chance to do that. No, seriously, you go through your life, you may not have no more than 5, 10 insight. And you develop that one over many, many years of study. Some of the things I'm doing, really, I find myself doing that 15 years ago. I studied the American company, and now I find the Asian counterpart. And I find the valuation that I like. I find I can really bet. But I studied that business for 15 years in between. I know everything about that industry and what really makes that business ticks. You need to have that kind of insight in order to really, you can really swing with conviction. And if you cannot do that, either psychologically or because you're ill-prepared, you just will never really make any real amount of money. I mean, you go through, you do what Ben Graham does, what Tweety Brown does. I mean, you're going to have your 10, 15% a year, and you're likely to do much, much better than most of the professional managers, the 95% of other people, but you're not going to make the outsized return that Buffett have been able to achieve. And you may not have that opportunity throughout your life. Why should it be easy? Opportunity of that kind that gives you 100,000, 10,000 times. Their biggest idea is to really give them 10,000 times. Opportunity, if done once in your life, you're set. Why should that be easy? By definition, they're not. And you require a whole bunch of different factors to come together. What really Charlie would have called it, what is the term, Lollapalooza. You've got all sorts of different kind of things working on the conscious level, the subconscious level, the psychological level, political, whatever. You got a whole bunch of forces working together. You got a huge wave behind you, and you are the one, or the only one, who have the insight and is willing to bet. Backed by sound, complete, accurate information and a huge insight. And that's what you are sort of really drives me in this business. It's exciting. It's utterly exciting. And you got to learn everything. My interest is just, I started with the physics, mathematics, and it got into economic history, law, politics. I like everything. I'm interested in everything. And that's what you needed. You might need models from biology. My wife has a PhD in biology, and actually, I learned a lot from her over the years, and actually some of them helped my investment, except she didn't know. That's maybe why she's here to check in. But anyway, so you got to learn. You have to learn from everything. You have to be intensely curious about everything. And occasionally, you're going to stumble into one big opportunity. Meanwhile, you still have plenty of things like, the Timberlands, the Hyundai, department store, H&S. You're going to find those opportunities from time to time. Give you a few times return. That's not bad. That's not bad.